So, Amaterasu. A technique so OP it can extinguish flames and burn as hot as the sun for days. And Sasuke knows this, because seeing how he uses it every chance he gets, like your Chidori isn't good enough and ends it with Amaterasu, or if that's not cool enough, like you could always make a sword out of it, right? Or if you're fighting a Kage, use Amaterasu, or if you're literally up against the god of the ninja world, just use Amaterasu, because hey, that's what he's doing, right? But in all seriousness, there's a lot more to it than that. But it still goes without saying, right, that it's one of the most incredible powers, or strongest powers I should say, of the Naruto universe. The first time we really saw it was back when Itachi used it to burn through the wall that Jiraiya created in order to escape when he and Kisame invaded the village looking for Naruto. And boy, if only we knew back then how serious those black flames would become down the line. It's classified as a Kekkei Genkai since you do need the Mangekyou Sharingan to use it, and the only characters we've seen using it so far are Itachi and Sasuke, unless you count the episodes with Asura and Indra, because those were only in the anime, so it's not truly canon. But you know, if you count those, Indra can use Amaterasu as well. The way Amaterasu works is one of the reasons why it's so stupidly powerful, because when Amaterasu is used, black flames are created wherever you're looking, so basically you're just spawning black flames at your focal point. So it doesn't travel, so it doesn't come from your eyes, and it appears on the spot where you're looking almost immediately. And since it doesn't travel, there's no way to stop it except for either breaking the line of sight by either blocking the line of sight with anything, so throw something in front of it, like Gaara does for example with his sand, or by being too fast to be seen like A does against Sasuke. And those are really the only ways to, prevent from being hit, because there's nothing else you can do. It just keeps burning through everything you throw at it. And it's never officially stated that it can bypass windows, but seeing as it's based on where the user is looking instead of traveling through your eyes, it probably could. And I feel like that's also demonstrated by Sasuke, how he uses it through his Susanoo multiple times. I mean, if he couldn't, it would probably just, stop at the Susanoo and just burn the Susanoo instead. But instead it doesn't, and it goes through the Susanoo. Which is kind of weird, because it has shown that the Biju cloak from Naruto, or that Naruto uses, can stop Amaterasu, and it doesn't go through the Biju cloak. So that's something that I'm not entirely sure on, and nobody on the internet really said anything about that, which makes sense because we've never really seen it happen often, and it's never really officially stated, but hey, I thought I'd mention it just in case. Anyways, once it hits you, there's nothing you can do, although there are ways to avoid it from hitting you in the first place, like pushing it away or blowing away the flames by using something like Shinra Tensei, or you could absorb them like Kaguya does at the end of Shippuden. But besides that, once you're hit, it's over. There's just nothing you can do against it because it keeps burning and you cannot get rid of it. Once it's on you, it's there and it's not going anywhere. So Amaterasu just keeps burning unless there's either nothing left to burn or if the user decides to extinguish it. And that's it. It cannot be stopped by water. You cannot throw dirt on it and expect it to stop. There's just no way you're gonna get rid of that. The only option you have once you get hit and when it's actually on your skin is to get rid of the part that's burning. So let's say your arm gets hit, you just rip that shit off because there's nothing else you're gonna do. And that's demonstrated by the Raikage when he gets hit in the fight against Sasuke at the Kage Summit, which is an insane moment by the way, because it just shows how incredibly powerful Sasuke is at that point. Sometimes though, when you get hit by Amaterasu, it hits your clothes first, and so it doesn't immediately burn through and hit your skin, so I guess it's possible that if you get hit, you can still rip a piece of clothing off and you'll be fine, which happened quite sometimes in the show and the manga, but once it touches your skin, it's just gonna be over unless you do something about it. There are some weak points to Amaterasu though. For example, when Itachi was fighting Sasuke, it was kind of clear that he was having bad eyesight, and because of that, he had serious issues with aiming it, or at least at some point. At first it was fine, and then eventually when he started getting blurry vision and the camera started, getting blurry to show hey, he's having an issue with his eyesight, it just went all over the place, because you need to focus on a single point. Because if you don't, it's just not gonna work out. In this case, Itachi was already sick, but just in general, using Amaterasu a lot, using it over and over and over and over, it's just gonna take a heavy toll on your eyes. And so with every use, it becomes increasingly more difficult to use depending on who is using it. And especially because Itachi was already sick, it just became increasingly more difficult to use it. This also kind of makes me wonder, like, how Sarada would ever use Amaterasu if she ever ends up getting it in Boruto, with her, like, rocking glasses and all, since she'd have blurry eyesight. And especially if you think back about what we talked about earlier, how it was kind of a debate on if, you know, Amaterasu would be able to be used through windows or not. Because if that's not the case, how are you going to use Amaterasu wearing glasses? Like, that just doesn't work. And if she had to take it off and she had blurry vision, she would just have issues being able to focus and stuff. And so I don't think she could ever use Amaterasu in the first place, which is just crazy to think about. Because, like, keep in mind, even though she does have her Sharingan awakened, that doesn't fix her eyesight. Sharingan doesn't improve your eyesight. And so I think she'd be out of luck if it ever came to Amaterasu if it couldn't be used through windows, which I think it can be. I'm pretty sure you can use Amaterasu through windows because it's about your focal point. And so if you focus on the window, it's going to be at the window. If you focus through the window, it's going to be behind the window. And so I'm pretty sure Sarada would just be able to use Amaterasu just fine. Anyways, what I said at the beginning of the video about Sasuke spamming his Amaterasu left and right, it's still true, but the creative things he does with it, which make it so spammable, are unique to him, because he has a right eye ability from the Mangekyou, and while Amaterasu is incredibly strong on its own, it's because of Sasuke's Kagutsushi that it gets stupidly OP. Like, it allows him to manipulate Amaterasu in basically any way he wants to, and so this man decided spawning black flames of that just wasn't enough for him. So what he does is, like, he creates shields out of them, and he creates swords out of them, or he enhances his Chidori with it, or he covers his Susanoo's, like, there's Magatamas with it, or hell, why doesn't he just freaking cover his entire Susanoo in it? Because he does that too, to protect himself, which just, that's what makes Amaterasu so crazy for Sasuke. He can just do anything he wants with it, because he can manipulate the flames and move them around whenever he wants to, in whatever form he wants to. I guess another big downside of Amaterasu would just be that it costs an incredible amount of chakra, but hey, like, at the end of Naruto, it kind of feels like everyone has almost an infinite amount of chakra storage in their body anyways, which I'm kind of exaggerating that, I know, but still, like, it takes a pretty long time for Sasuke to get drained, especially compared to freaking Itachi, who was already sick and who just couldn't take more than a couple uses of it. So there's this one last thing that I came across rewatching some of the old scenes where Sasuke uses Amaterasu, and if you remember, like, Itachi programmed Amaterasu in his own eye so that when Sasuke transplanted his eyes, Amaterasu would activate, like, immediately once they made contact with Obito's, like, own eyes when, you know, he used Sharingan. And so there's a moment where he hits Obito with it, and Obito manages to get away without being hurt, like, if much at all, and he's obviously in pain because he's, like, yelling or some shit, but then he appears to be fine. So I looked around on the internet and what people were saying, because, like, at first I assumed he dodged it with Kamui, but it had me wondering if Amaterasu could just be Kamui'd away, you know, or like if Obito could just Kamui himself away after he's being hit, because obviously if he did that before getting hit, there'd be nothing Sasuke could do, or like Itachi's, like, Amaterasu could do, because, you know, it just wouldn't have anything to latch onto. But I'm talking about, is that the same way if the flames were already on his body? And there's this one post I found that compared it to when Obito got hit by Torune's bugs, where Obito talks about how he got contaminated by the bug's poison, and so he was talking about how he couldn't phase them away, and so he had to remove his arm instead of, like, phasing it away. And I do get where, you know, the poster was coming from, because, you know, he was talking about how he couldn't phase the bugs away, but I feel like that's entirely different, because Obito wasn't talking about the bugs in this case. He was talking about how he got, like, his arm got contaminated by their poison. And I'll show the manga panels on the screen here. Obviously, he cannot just Kamui the poison out of his arm. Like, that would be ridiculous. So I do get that it's not possible, but I feel like that's different because with Amaterasu, that's on top of his arm. And so I feel like he could possibly either Kamui his arm away or Kamui the flames. And so other people said he used Izanagi, which would also make sense if you remember that Obito just had a giant collection of Sharingans laying around, and on top of that his clothes didn't really seem to be damaged, and also that wouldn't make sense if he just Kamui'd away, so I do get where other people are coming from, but I still feel like he used Kamui, because especially if you look at the data book, because it insinuated that he used Kamui. But I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys think in the comments, so if you have any idea of what he did, let me know. I'm super curious, and I see so many different opinions on this on, like, different forums and just people who cannot just agree with each other because they all have different ideas, but I'd love to hear that. Izanagi and Izanami are entirely different jutsu style, and I do have to admit they're by far like one of my favorite techniques in the entire show. But I've already sidetracked so much, and that could be an entire video on its own, so I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. I'd also love to hear if there's anything you want to hear me discuss, and if so, be sure to let me know in the comments. I'll check them out. These videos are just so incredibly fun and satisfying to make, and it's just so fun to completely geek out and give my opinion on anime. I can see myself making a whole lot more. Anyways, if you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like, and if you don't want to miss out on the next video I'm gonna be uploading, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Anyways, now you know why Amaterasu is considered like one of the most powerful fire release jutsus in Naruto, and why Sasuke is constantly throwing it around like left and right. I'll do my best to make these videos a regular thing, they're so fun, so stay tuned, don't forget how awesome you are, and I'll talk to you all next time.